let's get the camera working with this type of rolling transformation based off of forces now. One thing that I've done here, actually I'm going to set this back up, is I can actually attach my camera to my player. What this does is it binds the camera to whatever movement the player does. And you've probably experimented with this last week and noticed something really weird happens in this case, where it does follow, but it also rotates with the player, and that is pretty nauseating, and no one's going to want to play that experience. So I can't actually directly attach my main camera to my player if there's rotations involved. So what am I going to do? Well, I need to add a script to my camera. I'm going to call this camera controller, and let's create and add the script. And that's going to be a pretty quick tutorial. We're just going to tell the script to be able to follow the player. And so what we need to do with this is link information in a bit of a different way. In our previous tutorial, we actually created a rigid body, and then we got component when we started up the script. But in this one, we're going to do it in a bit more of a manual way. I'm going to create a public game object called player. Game object is kind of the baseline object type all of our objects will be kind of inheriting from in Unity. So we can kind of have a generic game object hold whatever we want. In this case, we're going to attach the player to it. So how do I attach the player to it? Well, I save the script, and now I go back into Unity, and I should see in my camera controller, I now am waiting for a game object. Well, what game object am I waiting for? I'm actually waiting for, or needing, the player that's in my game. I can just drag it over and attach it here, giving my script direct access to this particular player, which is the one I care about in this context. I don't need a start method in this script. And now what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to tell the transform position of my camera to be set to a new vector 3. And that vector 3 is going to get some information from the player. I'm going to go, hey player, the player that I've connected here, what is your X position? And player, what is your Y position? And, oh, actually, do I want my player's Y position? I want my camera to actually be a little bit further back. So, and I don't want it to be dipping in another direction. So why don't we just use my own Y and Z positions for now. And we're going to notice something a little bit funny happens that we're going to have to tweak a tiny bit here. Let's run our code, and the camera is now actually following the player and just moving back and forth, but not actually moving in or out. So we do need to actually attach that to the player's values. So let's go back in here and see, and we should just add the player transform to this and the player transform to this. So we have all the same information. And now we actually move in and out with the player in all the dimensions, except that we're kind of stuck inside the player's head. So let's actually make a little bit of an offset here. What is this axis? We want the camera to be kind of a little bit further behind. I see that's the Z axis. I actually want to be a bit further back. And I think I want the camera to be a little bit higher as well. In this case, it's the Y axis. So I need to make the Z and the Y a little bit further back. And that's negative Z and positive Y. So let's take Y up. Let's try 8. And let's take Z back 8. We can always add some more generic universal variables here if we want to make our code a little tighter, but just for testing right now. So that gets me definitely higher and further back. Maybe that's a little bit too high. You can always play with these values yourself. I'm going to take this quite a bit lower just to make sure this is functioning properly. And now what we got here is a beautiful script that forces our camera to follow along behind our ball and not do that weird rotation. Awesome. See you in the next video.